How much are you going to have to spend to just get this customer up and running and to give them the value exchange they expect? If they're going to pay you $100,000 and they know they're taking a bet on you as an early stage company, they're going to expect a ton from you and for it to work and for you to build them a lot of stuff.
Start with deer. Deer seemed to be the perfect prey, but I guess I'd say the mouse hunting was the single worst performing group in terms of initial revenue growth. That group is growing only about 1% per year. These are this like PLG self-serve motion. It feels great initially to be able to have customers self-serve, self-onboard, and so on. But I think what happens is the leaky bucket gets harder and harder to fill. You can't spend a lot of money to attract new customers, and you're often not in control of who signs up. And so it's very organic, which means you probably attract a lot of customers that are not the target customer you ultimately want to serve. And so there are some of these companies that start as mouse hunters that go on to become Calendly. But that's really only possible if you've got a ton of virality and like the single best product in that space. A lot of other companies try to do it and they fail.
And look, you're the go-to-market expert. You're always thinking about how do you attract the right customer and how do you have a sales motion that allows them to transact where and when they want to. From the finance perspective, I'm always thinking about the unit economics of that sale. And to your point, Calendly, if they're not doing like these big enterprise deals for the whole company, like they can't afford to staff a salesperson and a customer support person to help just CJ if I'm buying a license for me and Ben. So you bring up a lot of good points there, but the math has to hang here.
Can I share one other data point with you?
Of course.
So we talked initially about, hey, maybe you start with rabbit hunting, right? You go for 100 customers paying $100 a month, and then you could maybe move up market. The data shows it's really hard to change from where you start. Like these migrations are actually highly unusual. So 70% of companies in the data set kept the same target customer, even at least 3 years, after that initial 10K MRR. The default is like you're kind of locked in to whoever you're initially targeting. Once a deer hunter, always a deer hunter. And that makes sense. Like you're building the company to go after a really specific target. Like you're building the marketing function, like you're going after a certain buyer persona, prioritizing certain lead gen channels. You're deciding like self-serve versus building a sales team. You're building products that this type of customer wants. Like once you are locked in to one of these, your whole business is oriented around this one audience, and it's really hard to steer that ship away.
Choose wisely because it's more of a one-door decision than two, it seems.
Yeah, choose wisely. And if you are going to migrate, very few migrate, but the most common migration is going from rabbit to deer.
1 to 10.
1,000 a year to 10,000 a year. The number of deer hunters in the data, only 12% started as deer hunters at 10K MRR, but then 23% became deer hunters later on. So this had the single most migration to it over time. And in general, like if you're going to migrate, you can do about one animal up. It's the rule of thumb. It's hard to go down market. It's hard to jump to 2 animals, but you can go mouse to rabbit or rabbit to deer or deer to elephant. And so you're kind of boxed in, at least like within the sandbox where you already are.
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
I think HubSpot makes a really interesting example. So I said they were like a poster child for deer hunting. When I look back at their early pricing, they had a flat fee of $250 per month. So it seems like in the early days, they were actually rabbit hunters. And now they're doing almost exactly $1,000 per customer per month. They're about $11,000 to $12,000 per year. They are that poster child for like, you can move from rabbit hunting to deer hunting. It takes a lot to kind of steer that ship in a new direction.
It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, they've been going at it for over 10 years.
It's taken a long time for them to move a little bit upmarket. Have you seen one of the companies you've worked at like successfully change target customers?
To go more upmarket, definitely. It doesn't fit cleanly, but I would say going from like 40,000 a year to 150,000 a year average, like over the years as you start to sell to like big banks and huge manufacturers and you go into the enterprise. But my biggest takeaway from this is depending on which animal you decide to hunt, your entire org has to follow that structure, right? It's not like made in a vacuum where you're like, this is our sales org, but everything else is a little bit different. It all has to tie together.
Exactly. And it starts to get cemented at 10K MRR. And before that, like, it's all founder led. You're kind of YOLOing it. You have this new product, you just want people to try it out. But be careful, because what can start off as maybe a YOLO decision becomes your company. So the takeaway is you are what you hunt.
Ali and the team at Tabs are building something that directly addresses one of the biggest headaches I see finance teams deal with today. Pulling data from your ERP, your CRM, your FP&A tools, and your usage systems and actually making it all work together. If you're running usage-based pricing or complex contracts, you already know how this usually plays out. Contracts live in one system, usage data lives somewhere else, billing happens in another tool. RevRec gets layered on top at month end, and finance ends up just reconciling everything by hand to close the books. This is exactly the problem Tabs was built to solve. Tabs is an AI-native revenue platform built for controllers and CFOs. It brings together data from your ERP, CRM, and real product usage into a single system of record. From there, it automates billing, collections, and revenue recognition without finance having to duct tape workflows together every month. If usage-based revenue is core to your business, this is the future of how billing and RevRec get done. Go check them out at tabs.com/run. That's tabs.com/run.